Is Shirley Woods here? No? Nancy Vance. Yeah, thanks.
We're trying to get the presentation up on the screen, but we've got a bit of a, since we switched it, we've got a bit of an issue. So
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Tēnā koutou, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here to support my personal submission with regard to the community I live in and its supporting infrastructure, and this is Diamond Harbour. I submitted on 4 items, and I will speak to only one of these today, and that's the planning and resourcing to support the continued operation of the ferry terminal between Diamond Harbour and Lyttelton, particularly providing direct and unrestricted access to central London Street in Lyttelton and maintaining the Diamond Harbour Wharf. We're fortunate in Diamond Harbour to be linked, does that come up there? To be linked to wider Christchurch by a 6-minute public transport strategy. I might just, does that show for everybody? Okay, then I brought handouts just in case. Could we hand those out, please? Thank you. Sorry, I was waiting for that to fire. I'll carry on. We're fortunate in Diamond Harbour to be linked to a wider Christchurch by a 6-minute public ferry crossing. We may drive to the central city in 40 minutes, or we may take public transport to the central city in 35. This was excellent forward thinking back when the operation began, and today provides a crucial link for residents of the southern bays being Port Levy, Purau, Diamond Harbour, Charteris Bay, Church Bay, comprising of 2,000 residents. The Greater Christchurch Urban Development Strategy of 2007 identifies Lyttelton as the activity or service centre for these southern bays, which it is. By 2041, the population of the southern bays will pass that of Lyttelton, and this link is the key to a sustainable future for our community. Though patronage dropped post-earthquake due to the relocation of central city businesses, this link is becoming more important again as the central city rebuilds and our community is growing. It makes living in Diamond Harbour sustainable. It connects us to our commercial and retail services of London Street. It decreases the reliance on the personal vehicle, and it offers choice in transport modes and reduces the city's traffic congestion. The long-term plan should complement the great transport initiatives we already have in the central city, being the Accessible City document, the Christchurch Transport Strategic Plan, and others. However, the Council says very little, if anything at all, in these documents about this ferry connection specifically. The Lyttelton terminal may sit within Port Operations land, but it is an asset and service to the Christchurch City Council and Environment Canterbury. The community has been in a scenario of uncertainty about the location of the ferry terminal on the Lyttelton side for almost 10 years. The residents wish to retain direct pedestrian access or less than 400-metre walking distance to the central London Street from B Jetty, its current location, or from nearby wharfs 4, 5 and 6, and you can see that on the map where that's identified the 3 finger wharfs. And the Lyttelton Port of Christchurch wishes to move the terminal to Dampier Bay, which is a much longer walking distance to London Street. Not only is retaining a ferry terminal on Lyttelton's waterfront in either of these locations good urban design, it also respects the history of that space at the end of Oxford Street. The landward end of the end of Oxford Street was the landing place of the Canterbury Association in 1850. The first settlers and colonists from Europe of the South Island landed on that point, at that place. And the departure point for epic Antarctic expeditions in the early 1900s. These were expeditions that departed with 1/3 to 1/2 of the residents of Christchurch lining the wharves to watch this phenomenal event of explorers going into the unknown. Today's equivalent might be Barack Obama going on a rocket to Mars. It was that kind of sensation. We have opportunities here for overlap of heritage, culture, commercial enterprise, and transportation. Rich experientially and economically viable while continuing to support Littleton businesses through these partnerships. I recognise that there's a parallel process at the moment with the Littleton Port Recovery Plan, and I ask that you, the Council, address the ferry service and infrastructure in public transport planning, in the long-term plan, and in future transport considerations alongside cycling and the bus services and our pedestrian links, and to maintain the ferry public terminal at the node at B Jetty or the wharves 4, 5 and 6 to meet the service and infrastructure needs of the growing community of the Southern Bays. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Own the wharf where it lands.
The wharf where it lands is Littleton Port Company operation.
So this is all covered by the Littleton Recovery Plan, which
It
is
is
not
a
a parallel process, it's an alternative process.
Yes, yes. I appreciate that, and I'm familiar. I think the target of looking at buses and cycle lanes and pedestrians is worth thinking about how the ferry fits into those connections and how those links are made. A transport node is not a destination.
No.
It's a link, it's a hinge, getting people from one place to their residence to the services they need.
So if it were moved as a result of the Littleton Recovery Plan, that you would want us to take into account all of those connections in the planning that we do.
In the connections and the support of the services that the businesses in Littleton offer. London Street is bookended by Canterbury and Oxford Street, and that's the main service area. Residents take the ferry to town, they get off in the evening. I commuted for 8 years. You stop to get groceries on your way home, you stop at a physio appointment. This is the service centre, and in a growing community we're going to be relying on this more and more. I also think that the move to Dampier Bay, not only a longer walking connection, but offering a bus from that point for the 1 kilometre up to the town centre would be an urban equivalent here in the city of putting the bus exchange at Carlton Mill and Hagley Park and saying, here's your destination, there's recreation here, but it's okay, you can still walk to the CBD and we'll put a bus onto the CBD. The yachting at the marina is a different activity to a transport node that people need to access their services.
Okay, Andrew.
2 questions, and they're both very quick ones. I'm assuming that you've put in a submission to the Littleton Port Recovery Plan, and you'll be pleased to know that Council also did, and a lot of what we said in there about the ferry aligns with the presentation you've made this afternoon. Second question, the one part of the network that Council does have some control over, and it's noted as a priority in the activity management plan, in the long-term plan that deals with wharves and marine structure, is the wharf at Diamond Harbour. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about the wharf at Diamond Harbour to draw our attention to? I notice in your written submission you've got some comments around surfaces and signage and so on. That is the one part of the network that Council can influence.
Yes, I tried, because of the limited time, I tried to focus on the most pertinent and critical in the next 10 years thinking about services and infrastructure, and that is that location in Littleton. But yes, the maintenance of the Diamond Harbour Wharf is definitely on people's mind in the community, and its accessibility.
Sorry, I shouldn't have asked you.
The other point that I made in my submission was the adoption and implementation of the Stoddart Point Reserve Management Plan, and that would begin to address that. Would be legibility of landscape. When people arrive, where do they go? How do they know? The safety and accessibility. There are accessible car parks there, but actually getting on the ferry is not accessible. So those issues need to be addressed. Yeah, they're secondary to, I think, the most important one of the connection of that link.
Lovely.
Thank you.
But thank you very much for your time, and much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the next one is Jenny, and I'm going to get the name